Hi, this is Scott Roche with Solid Rock IT Consulting, and today's question comes to us from JRD Skinner. JRD is a longtime friend of mine, and he's an excellent podcaster. I recommend that you go check out his stuff. Today his questions are, how often should I be opening my tower to give it a dusting? Our tower is now a thing of the past. And if I wanted to swap my kid's old laptop over to a Linux distro, what's my best option? So, 3 very good questions. The first one I don't get that often, but it is pretty important. Cleaning out your desktop PC. So usually your desktop PC is going to be on the floor. Very good place for it to collect dust. If the case is easy to open, then I definitely recommend opening it to take a look once every 6 months, maybe once a year. It can definitely influence the operation of the system. It can make it overheat because it can clog up the fans that are inside. So it's definitely something to consider. A little anecdote from my own work experience. We had a PC come in from a factory and it was clogged with red dust, and the dust basically killed the PC. So definitely filling it up with dust and dust bunnies and things like that. You'd be surprised how much can get in through the little openings in your PC. Worth doing. Unless you have an all-in-one or a laptop where you don't really have to worry about that, definitely recommend giving it a good cleaning once a year at the longest. So, second question, are desktops a thing of the past? No, not at all. You can still get really solid desktops. There are some definite advantages in terms of your ability to upgrade and service these machines. They're still a great price point. I recommend that you get a desktop unless there is a solid reason that you need a laptop. Laptops are much cheaper now, so it's a little less of a solid line when it comes to spending your money, but long term, desktops typically last longer and are cheaper in the long term to service and take care of. So definitely recommend thinking about getting a desktop for your main household PC and then getting a netbook or a small laptop as a subsidiary PC. So, third question, Linux distro. Probably lost a few of you on that question. Linux is a version of Unix, and it is an open source operating system. Open source means that it's sort of open to the public. The code that actually makes up the operating system is public, so that people can get in there and manipulate it and create their own versions. Typically open source software is cheaper if not free, and it's also supported by the community rather than by a company in most cases. There are some distros of Linux and Unix that are intended for enterprise or large companies, and for those you might have to pay. That I'm not sure of, but these operating systems are free for you to download and try out. They make excellent replacements for Windows on older PCs because the newer versions of Windows won't run on older PCs, but these versions of Linux will. I'll put a link in the show notes to a solid site that's reviewing several different distros of Linux. Incidentally, distro is short for distribution. They're also referred to occasionally as flavors. So, in my own experience, depending on how old your machine is, Ubuntu is a solid choice. I've used it on a laptop that's 2 or 3 years old. Great performance. You want like a processor that's in the 1 to 1.2 gigahertz range on the bottom end. You want probably a gig of RAM, maybe 50 or 100 gig hard drive, and you shouldn't have any problems running it. Now, if it's a really old machine, you might go with something like, I think there's one called Peppermint that I was reading about earlier today. It's a lightweight distro intended for older machines. And I'll bring up the recommended specs on Peppermint. It recommends a 266 megahertz processor, 192 megs of system memory, and 4 gigs of disk space. So that's, if your machine's any less than that, it's probably too old to worry about. There is another tool that may help you in this decision. It's called UNetBootIn, and it can be downloaded at unetbootin.sourceforge.net. And what it is it enables you from your Mac or your PC to create a USB drive with 18 different distros of Linux that you can try out in a live from boot sort of environment, where you just stick it in, boot up off the thumb drive, and it boots into the operating system without doing any installs. I'm also playing around with Mint, which is another good one for an older machine. The recommendations for Mint, as far as the hardware is concerned, is again a gigahertz processor, 512 megs of memory, 10 gig hard drive, 3D capable graphics card. So again, pretty low end specs, and I think that would get you a good solid machine that you can still use. The nice thing about Ubuntu and Peppermint and Mint, based on my experience, is that it's getting software has a graphical user interface component. In the past, you had to install stuff from the command line. It's a little more difficult, but these have sort of an app store component that lets you go and install and uninstall your software pretty easily. The other advantage is these do come installed with things like your browser and some of your more basic user tools. So, and the installs are typically really easy to do. So it's great for older PCs. It brings a little life to older PCs, and I highly recommend it. Well, that's it for today. If you have any questions, please contact me at scott@scottroach.com, or go to the Facebook page for Solid Rock IT Consulting, which is going to be in the link, or you might even be watching it on the page. And so let me know what you think. Anything from what's the best antivirus, to what PC should I get, to how do I learn web design. Those are all topics I'll probably cover in future shows, but if you have some specific questions, or 2 or 3 questions, don't hesitate to ask. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, and take care.